Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make my coconut macaroons. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. These coconut macaroons are super simple, so let's go ahead and get started by preheating our oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the first thing that you need for today's recipe is 14 ounces of sweetened shredded coconut. Now, I want you to take a look at this coconut. This coconut is nicely shredded, and you can certainly use it just this way if you'd like. But one thing I highly recommend is if you have a food processor, we are going to use this food processor to briefly pulse this coconut a little bit more so that we have finer shreds. This just makes a nicer, more uniform coconut macaroon. It makes it a nicer texture, and I highly recommend doing this quick extra step if you have a food processor. I'll just drop this into my food processor, and I'm just going to pulse it for about 15 seconds. I do 15 1-second pulses. And I just want you to take a look at the coconut. As you can see, the shred is just a little bit nicer, it's finer. It's just going to create a more nicely textured macaroon. All right, now let's bring this over to a large mixing bowl, and we'll just go ahead and pour all of that coconut in there. And the next thing you are going to need is sweetened condensed milk. Now you will need 3/4 cup of sweetened condensed milk. This is not a full 14-ounce can. I want to show you I still have some left over in my can. I know I would love to use a full can when I can, but please do not try to get away with using a full can in today's recipe, or your macaroons are going to end up basically melting in the oven. You're going to have puddles all around the bottoms of them. We're also going to add 1/4 teaspoon of table salt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then this is optional, but I like to add just 1/4 teaspoon of coconut extract. It just adds a little extra something to the macaroons. It really helps bring out that coconut flavor in a way that you just don't get by just using shredded coconut. Now use a spoon or a spatula to just stir all of these ingredients together until they are thoroughly combined. You want to make sure all of that sweetened condensed milk is worked into the coconut. You want everything to be really well combined here. All right, this is looking really nice. I'm going to set this aside, and in a separate bowl, I'm going to need to whip some egg whites to stiff peaks. Now, anytime you are whipping egg whites, you want to make sure that the bowl you are using is completely clean, dry, and grease-free, and that the beaters that you are using to whip them are also clean, dry, and grease-free. Otherwise, they're just not going to whip properly. I'm going to crack these eggs in a separate bowl first, also clean and dry and grease-free. The easiest way to get that white out is just to pass the yolk back and forth. You can see I got that shell right in there, which is why we always crack these eggs in a separate bowl. Take that out. We'll pour that white into our larger mixing bowl, and we need 1 more egg white because we need 2 egg whites a total. Not sure if I said that already. All right, so I have my egg whites. Now I am just going to start beating these with my electric mixer. I'm going to start on low speed and gradually turn that speed up to high. All right, so I just wanted to pause here real quickly because I wanted to show you we're not quite at stiff peaks yet. This is soft peaks, and basically what that means is when I pull the beaters out of the egg white mixture, the little peaks that form, they fold right back over themselves and start to dissolve back into the bowl. So we're not quite there. We're going to keep whisking. All right, this is what I'm talking about. When I pull the beater out of the bowl, you can see the peaks that formed in the bowl are standing strong. You might be able to see it better on the beater. These peaks are holding their shape perfectly. If I take my spatula, you can see this is a pretty solid mixture. It's not very liquidy. It's nice and fluffy and very sturdy. Now we'll take this over to our bowl of coconut. We'll add this in. And now use a spatula to gently fold together all of these ingredients. We just did all that work to whip them to stiff peaks. Over mixing them can actually cause them to break down, and you can have a runnier macaroon than you really want. So we're gonna be gentle. Definitely don't use your electric mixer here. And once everything is nicely combined, you'll want to grab yourself a baking sheet that you've ideally lined with parchment paper. If you don't have parchment, you can skip it, but it makes cleanup so much easier. And then I like to use a 1.5 tablespoon-sized cookie scoop and just scoop those macaroons, a nice level scoop, and drop that on my baking sheet. And you want to space these cookies at least 1 inch apart. All right, now we'll take these over to our 325-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven, where they're going to need to bake for about 20 to 23 minutes. When the macaroons are finished baking, the tops may be beginning to turn a very light golden brown, as the edges may be as well. Now, all that's left to do is let these macaroons cool completely on our baking sheet. You can enjoy these exactly as they are, or if you're like me and like a little bit of a chocolate mixed in there as well, I recommend melting 4 ounces of dark chocolate. And then once the macaroons have cooled, you can just dip the bottom in the chocolate, return it to the parchment paper or return it to a wax paper lined baking sheet, and then you'll just have to let the chocolate harden before you enjoy the macaroons. And that is how you make my easy favorite coconut macaroon recipe. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you try this one out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Of course, I picked the one with the most chocolate on it. That's good.